Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another Ziti TV. I'm live again. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. A lot going on in the old open ZD land. Um, Working on a lot of new interesting things. HA has been being cooked for quite some time now and is getting tested a lot. And along with that comes things like OIDC PKCE flow support for tunnelers. So a lot of work going into that and a lot of work on the Discourse forums. Lots of people popping in, saying hi, asking great questions. In fact, it's led to today's ZD TV. So let's take a look at the old agenda here. That is the wrong view. Hey, that's the right view. So yeah, we're going to look at a forum member from Discourse was talking about using LiveKit and using pion or pion. I don't know how one would pronounce that. WebRTC. And so this was interesting because they're trying to actually Zitify or incorporate zero trust into the WebRTC project from Pion. I'm going to say Pion. If it's not Pion, then somebody can correct me. I'm not going to say Pion. So it's Pion. All right. Well, that's what we're doing on this ZDTV. And if you aren't aware, or if you are interested, the next ZDTV, let me see, I'm trying to find my Discourse post here so I can bring it on the screen. The next ZDTV is actually going to happen in approximately 2 hours from right now, where I'm going to, here, let's put me on the screen. Hey, now you can look at me. Where I'm going to be taking a look at our complicated Docker Compose setup and adding another router into that mix, and then just doing random things. It'll be like an office hours. So if you're interested in asking questions or coming back and hanging out and just, making fun of me for whatever I get wrong as I go along, then great. All right. So we have CarlosHleb on Discourse, and it started out with the topic of Zitifying WebRTC Golang, which is cool. Like I said before, Zitifying is the act of incorporating an OpenZD SDK into your application. And so this is how we started out the Discourse post. And one of the things that is really easy to fall into is, what the things that we know. And one of the things that a lot of people know are TCP and IP. And look at this. It seems like we have a chatter. Hello, chatter. Hello, Clint. Back to the video streams. Yes, sir. I am. Welcome, Alex. Thanks for saying hi. So used to things like networking stacks, TCP, UDP. And so a very understandable question. Carlos says, hey, I tried to use your OpenZD SDK. I took a look at it and I see a dial function, but I don't see a listen TCP. I don't see a listen UDP. And of course, this is WebRTC, so it's almost certainly going to be using UDP. So how do I listen on UDP? And so we went back and forth a little bit because, like I said, this is natural, right? This is where you would start. I know TCP, I know UDP, so obviously I need to listen on UDP. And we went back and forth a tiny bit, right? And in here, I basically said, you don't have to listen on UDP. With OpenZD, OpenZD is basically, let's go to the docs in case, if you're watching this, you probably are familiar, but in case you're not familiar with the whole overall design. But with OpenZD, you can take an SDK and bake it actually into your application, and then you can just write bytes. And so there's no TCP, there's no UDP, there are just bytes into a stream, effectively. You can message orient it if you want to do message oriented communications, but that's up to you. To OpenZD, it's just a block of streams. It's just a stream I write blocks of bytes into and read blocks of bytes from. And so that's what OpenZD will do. It'll securely get you your bytes from one place to the other, regardless of whether it's TCP, regardless of whether it's UDP. You just write your bytes, they show up on the other side, and then you decide what you want to do with those bytes. A lot of times, you take those bytes and you offload them back onto what we call the underlay network, OpenZD being an overlay technology built upon TCP IP. The underlay network is where you offload your bytes back onto. All right, we have another person hanging out. Cool. Hey, Garvit, how's it going? Props to Gukesh. Anybody? Any chess fans? Any chess fans? India, big with the chess lately. So I'm chess fan. Watched Gukesh win. Very sweet little end of the Masters tournament yesterday. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And hello everybody. Let's see. We also have Rustlin hanging out. Cool. Look at this. We got a big crowd today. That's great. Hi everybody. So back to OpenZD, Zidifying WebRTC, and so naturally you'll reach to RD or to UDP or to TCP, and with OpenZD you don't have to do any of that. So we got through that with Carlos here. Oops, this is now too big. Let's see. We'll go back to this. And so Carlos and I were going back and forth, and he had said he had made a simple example, and I had said, "Well, geez, I'm trying to understand what you did. Could you possibly produce a repository that shows me what you did, and I'll take a look at it?" Generally speaking, when I'm trying to add Ziti to a thing, the first step I always do, particularly if it's something I don't understand deeply, is I have to see it function and work successfully without Ziti, because I'm not going to know, if it works or not, how it's supposed to work. I need to know where to go and look. And so, we got through some things, and he ended up putting up. I'm trying to find his. SDK Golang, UDP offload. I made an example. Here we go. And so he made a GitHub repository, which you can all check out here. You know what? I can put that into the chat. It's also, I think it's in the description, but if it's not, there it is. Where he was using LiveKit. Now, for me, LiveKit was new as well. I've heard of it, but I've never actually used it. Right, to the comment before, being a busy man, I only have so much time in the day, and a lot of the time is trying to figure out what's going on in Discourse. And so one of those things was LiveKit. I haven't used LiveKit, so if you go to github.com LiveKit, you can go to the actual GitHub for LiveKit. And of course, they have a website, which is quite nice, that you can check out. But cool, open source community. It's a project or a company built around open source, much like NetFoundry and OpenZD. And so it's cool because you can go here and you can check out LiveKit. And so I also really appreciate every person who comes into the forum who's new to OpenZD. I wrote a lot of the OpenZD docs. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them a while back, and they're due for a refresh. And so a lot of times, some of the first few things that people say is, "Hey, great, your doc probably could use an overhaul because certain topics are hard to understand, or maybe not so obvious." And as time has gone by, that's why the Discourse site is out there. So hopefully everybody can find answers in Discourse. Even I sometimes can't find the answers I'm looking for. But that's why it's out there, so that Google and other search engines can try to find the answers that our doc might be missing. A lot of times it takes me a lot longer to produce a high quality piece of document than it does to answer somebody's Discourse question real quick. So LiveKit, I learned a lot from them. Their doc is kind of in a similar state, in my opinion. They could use some of that. Well, that's not the one. They could use some of that kind of rearranging love, because I found it really hard to get started with LiveKit. Personally, I couldn't get the server running, and I ended up going and looking for alternative guides to getting. And one of the ones I found, actually, there's a great and I don't know if I just missed it on their doc site. How do I go back to the docs? It's up here somewhere. Pricing, LiveKit company developers, documentation. Yeah, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but I didn't find it. But LiveKit has a CLI, which I could see because installing the CLI is right here. And you can go and install the CLI. And then LiveKit also has something that OpenZD has, which is a really easy way of starting. And once I found that, it made things a lot easier. Now, also, you don't need that, because Carlos actually has all of this in his environment, in his GitHub project. So he has an entire Docker Compose environment that you can pull down and run. And presumably this will run. For me, it was a bit complicated because it also ends up running the producer and also runs up running. Let's see, where is this producer? Publisher. I think it calls it publisher. Publisher. Yeah. So there's a publisher app and there's a subscriber app. And I didn't know what these things did. And so for me, as somebody coming into it, I didn't know what I should see or how I should see it or what it was all about. And so we had some more back and forth on the Discourse. And he said, if you wanted to see it, you can install, the red triangle. If you want to see the red triangle being streamed, you can install this. And so LiveKit has a separate organization, which I don't quite know why, but that's where they put their examples. And so once I found that, that was cool. And so in the examples, you can actually run this little web UI that connects to a LiveKit server and will let you show your video. And so this was how I was starting. And again, this is all just warm up into what we're doing here. And so I have a whole little environment where I've gotten things. Let's see, this is my CLI. Let me just see if it's big enough. I always have to make it so that it's comical for me. Let's see, and I have a little set of Clint steps that I have in here. These are the things that I did. And so what I was trying to do, let's see if we look. So I went and I fetched the LiveKit CLI, and then I untarred it. And then I have LiveKit server there, LiveKit server right there. And so then I could run that LiveKit server in dev mode. And that's really super nice, right? So you can do LiveKit server minus dev. And when you do that, it starts right up and it's ready to go. That was super easy. All right, let's go back to here in a different window while that thing stays cooking. We'll just put it up here. And then, as Carlos was saying, you can go to the LiveKit examples. Where's the LiveKit examples? I must have moved off of it. Right here, LiveKit example. And this is actually not it. This is the one, LiveKit example /meet. So if I go back to my GitHub repository, into LiveKit, and into Meet, in here you can install PNPM, I think is what it was called. README. Yeah, PNPM. And then you can execute this little program. Where's the, let's see, I made the env, update the environment variables, run PNP dev. And so now if I go to localhost, I should be able to see this. And if I start a meeting, I should be able to connect to my own computer using localhost 3000 and allow it to use my video and my camera. Who knows what will happen? Let's turn off the microphone and join the room. Encountered an unexpected error. Oh, the device is in use, of course, because I'm showing you my screen. And so that was what LiveKit was. And so then I wanted to see the triangle. Carlos had promised me there was a triangle. If you want to see the red triangle, you can go and run this. And so I was confused because I didn't know where the red triangle would come from or how it would get there. And so eventually I got around to actually opening up the Carlos's I don't know. This is going to be tiny on the left. I can make this stuff bigger, but the left is a little bit smaller. And then I got through and I looked at the publisher and I noticed that in the publisher, the word red triangle shows up. So I was like, okay, great. I gotta integrate with Carlos's project, with my locally running LiveKit server, and then with that locally running Meet server, and I'll get this, promised triangle. And so that's what I wanted to do on Ziti TV today. I wanted to get to the red triangle. So I don't know if Carlos is out there, but here we go. We're going to try to get to that red triangle. First thing I wanted to do, and this is just the way that I do development, is I need to feel like I understand what I'm doing. And so one of the reasons I didn't like that Docker Compose is because it did all these things for me, and I felt like I didn't understand it enough. It was trying to be too helpful, and when it didn't work for me, I couldn't debug it. So I went in here and I started hacking this thing up. And so the first thing is, if you look at another thing that gave me pause is, if you look at the install screen, let's actually look at the README. There's a nice README, and it does have a bunch of stuff that are really nice to learn from if you've never used OpenZD or even if you have. So the init function does some stuff, and then it will do a Docker Compose pull build and up. And so I looked at the init function, and that was easy enough. It's just using OpenSSL to create some certificates. I was like, okay, I understand that. That's great. I'm not worried about that. And then I read the install script. As anybody should, I actually read the script before I just simply executed it. When I read the script, I was like, okay, ZDEX, cool. This is a technique I've seen in the past. I think maybe Ken came up with it somewhere, but it's just a function that calls Docker Compose and lets you do some stuff, right? And so this ZDEX function goes into the Docker Compose environment and runs the commands like login. So you have to authenticate to the OpenZD server before you can configure it. And then it'll do, yes, that's right. Welcome, Ken. Ken lives life dangerously on the edge and decides to just curl things right into bash because that's how you do. All right. So we have ZDX Edge create config. So you have to make a couple of configs. You have to make a service. You have to make some service policies. And these are all standard things you got to do every time you're going to integrate with a zero trust overlay like OpenZD. Is you have to explicitly authorize your clients and servers. And so the service policies will do the authorization. We have a bind, we have a dial, and then we have create config, and this just goes through and creates that host config. So this is the intercept config. Looks like we had one above it. I don't know why there are two of them. One's for LiveKit RTC service and one's for the ZAC, I see. No problem. And then I got down to here and I saw a sudo and I was like, oh, what's this all about now? And I see that it's copying from the certificates that I just created into my local CA store and then doing some things. So I was like, okay, that's probably fine. I mean, I just made those certs, so that's probably okay. But I also wanted to know if I could undo it. So one thing I didn't see, or I didn't see anything in the uninstall that lets me remove those certificates once I've added them. So probably don't need to, but that gave me a little bit of pause, and I was like, all right, let me just see if I can do this without TLS, because anybody who's ever done, TLS understands as soon as you bring TLS into the picture, it complicates a lot of debugging. So I wanted to do it without TLS. I wanted to see if I could connect with my non-WSS endpoint. So I'd come into here and I changed this to be localhost 7880, and then dev key and secret. These are the key and secret that you will see when you use the dev server from LiveKit. Again, I don't know. This was like the best hidden secret from LiveKit from me, but I didn't find it in their doc. But this really spins things up really quickly. Now, another thing that you do have to be aware of is if you start Carlos's example, well, we're getting into tab hell here. If you start Carlos's example, inside of here, it's going to have, where is it? It does have the keys defined. Oh, it's in the M file, right? Yeah, so here you go. Docker Compose reads that .env and sets up a whole bunch of stuff on your behalf. And so he's already got these keys and secrets, ready for you if you want to just do it. And so that was that. And so I started out trying to debug this. What I wanted to do is understand, look at this. I actually overrode the endpoint down here instead of modifying it up here. So that's what I've already done that. Let's go ahead and close it. All right. So as I do, I will just go ahead and run this program. Let it compile. I don't know why it's so slow. Sometimes it's slow. Maybe, hopefully the audio checks out. Like sometimes I've listened to these streams in the past, and even though my CPU count is relatively high, and I got a lot of headroom, as you can see, every once in a while I hear it clipping. So hopefully it's not clipping. I'll blame YouTube or Restream if it does. All right, here we go. So we're into the init from config. Now, when I just ran this, I didn't have a config file anywhere. And so when I executed this, it enters a pretty deep loop down on the initcon from OpenZD, this initcon connection. It gets into a for loop. I don't see where it retries, but it retried. Maybe it's this. It was retrying over and over and over again. Yeah, well, we'll let it play through and see what happens. Where's my F5? All right, there it goes. And so I've actually gone through and created a JSON file, an identity file. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. If we go to, okay, we're going to make a new window. I'm going to leave all that. Yeah, should we leave all that running? Yeah, let's leave it all that. We'll just see if it, oops, that's, no. Okay, it's going to be like that. I see. Let's do it this way then. That's better. All right, so in this middle window here, all right, it's top window, top pane is LiveKit. This middle pane is my UI that serves the room where I'm going to hopefully see the triangle. And then down here, this will be just where I goof off. All right, the video's lagging behind. Oh no, that's terrible. All right, thank you for that, Ruslan. Let's see, so Citi to GitHub, and now we're going to Citi to Carlos, and then here, and then inside of Publisher, I have a publisher.json file. And that's what an identity file looks like inside of ZD land. I don't mind showing you, even though these things are secrets. If you're not aware, don't share them with people. But I don't mind because this is all just local. So in this file, you have a private key, and you'll have a certificate, and you'll have a CA chain that allows you to form a secure connection to the OpenZD controller. All right. So if I were to remove, actually, let's go back and let's run it from here. We just run it from here. If I move publisher.json to publisher.json.back, and then I go run main, main.go. All right. And so now this will just recompile and run the same thing. And what I should see is that loop that runs over and over again. Yeah, see, like that. I didn't bother tracking that down. When I saw this, I knew what was going on. And I was like, oh, I just got to put a publisher.json. Now, mind you, if you were to just go run the README that Carlos did, I bet all this just works. But me being me, this is what I do. I want to understand it. So now I can move the publisher.back to publisher.json and go run main again. And all right, so now I got this far. And when I did this, it seems like everything is good. We're connected. It says it's connected to LiveKit. That seems okay. It tells me it's using ICE servers. I can't remember what ICE stands for, but there's a stun, turn, ICE, and stun, turn, ICE. There's one more, I think. And it's all about UDP relay and NAT traversals and that sort of stuff. I'm not going to get into it because I wouldn't expect to need it. I would have thought since I could connect right to the LiveKit server that I wouldn't need this, but maybe they just set this up just because. And then what happened is it said it could not connect after a timeout. And so I had looked at, or at this point I control seed, and let's see, what's my git status show? Yeah, no changes. So I had looked at the go mod inside of here, and you'll see, actually, if we go back a directory and look in here inside of lib, and this is a pretty common idea. All of the dependencies were checked out or pulled down and pushed back into the repository. It's probably not what I would have done. I probably wouldn't push them into my repository. I probably would check them out like this and then modify them if I needed to. Sometimes it's just easier to have them all locally where you can go right into the source and you don't have to worry about it. So you can see he's got this pion webrtc and turn and ICE. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to see what kind of differences there are. That's one of the reasons why it's nice to have the actual repository so you can see what the differences might be. But inside of each of these, there have been subtle changes here and there that he's been doing to try to Zitify this. I went in because it's not how I would do it. I would want to instead, let's go look at that. So you can see those are the dependencies. Let's go back to the publisher again, and inside of here, if I look at the go mod, you can see all those replaces are in place, and that's all just important because then when I come to the back to GoLand in here, and when I go into lib, and we see all this stuff, we'll understand why we're in here, and that's why we're in here. And so in the OpenZD stuff, That's where the setup context is. And in here, it's not connecting. So Carlos had pushed a update he had said to the fallback. So if I look for the word fallback in here, there's the fallback dialer, which is inside of the setup and the underlay dialer. Yeah. And so there's a dial. And so if I put a breakpoint on this guy, and let's see, where else can we go? Setup context, setup transport. So generally, when you're connecting to a server somewhere, you're going to be using some sort of Go primitive, like a netcon or what is it, a buffered reader, just a reader or a reader. And so you need to be able to read those bytes and write those bytes, right? And that's Ziti will provide to you a netcon that you can then use in your network application. And so inside of here, we have a setup transport with a fallback dialer, and the underlay dialer is what will dial the underlay if the OpenZT overlay is not available. And so if I go ahead and hit the breakpoint again, or actually start the server up again, I'm not running it over here, right? Yeah. All right. So if we come in here, in it from the config, and there we go. We see it's returning the underlay dialer, which will be used, and connected LiveKit, and then it's going to time out. So what I was getting towards is how, oops, that's the wrong place. I wanted to know how I was going to debug this. So I kept going through. Another nice thing that Carlos did from here is in the init command, nope, in the install command in here, he had created all of the OpenZT overlay that we need. And so this should make it very easy. In fact, I did all this setup because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just run his actual example so that we can actually see this thing work, because it's a lot of setup for no ZD yet. All right, so let's go ahead and level set. We'll stop all this, and we'll come back over to here and stop this, and we will go back to the README, and we'll actually let it do its thing. All right, so let's see, and we'll init. Here goes the OpenSSL. All right, and then we'll do these things. And I'll get rid of this window. We'll put it back to the top again. Oh, yeah. Okay. I must have purged. Oh, boy. Yeah, I think I did. So this will build. Okay, that didn't take too long. Good. All right, port's already allocated. What do I have it on? Port 80, huh? So, LiveKit. We got Docker Web Test Blue. I see. So this is for the 1 o'clock Ziti TV about the Docker Compose. Where did I put that? I put that into Docker, and then complex, and then Docker Compose down -v, and it's still running, huh? Okay, whatever. We'll just rm -f all these things. Yeah, and then we have these, and that is, nope, bummer, GitHub, Carlos, and then Docker Compose down. And let's see if we're clean now. All right, DPS -a, just make sure. All right, good. And then Docker oh no, wait, let's go back and Docker Compose up. All right. Do all the same things again. Now this should start without any flaws. All right, there it goes. Starting up. Let's again read install.sh. I think it has to wait until Ziti's running. Yeah, it'll log in. So let's wait for the quick start here to finish. And then we can start running the install script. All right. Oh, got to be in the right location. And I've got to be crazy big. Okay, and so now off it goes, executing things within the Docker Compose environment, making an identity, making some configs, making some policies, doing all the needful. So far, so good. All right, and then I'm gonna actually let it copy those certificates. Since I read it, I feel okay about it. Did I hit enter? All right. All right, so now this is where I got up at top. I got so I had seen this subscriber.json not found. I don't know what will happen. I've never actually let this complete. So hopefully it will put a file in the right place, and then things will stop being quite so spazzy up there. I don't know. All right, so we do seem to be done. We do seem to have a fair bit of scrolling by up there. Let's see what's next. Install.sh. After this should be an admin identity in the store. Add it to your local tunneler. And sudo. Okay, now go back to the first terminal. Control C if you have a running tunneler. All right. So I'm not going to do that. I run Windows. And on Windows, there is a special directory that is right here. So it's system32. Oops. Don't click on it. System32 config, system profile, app data roaming, net foundry. If you use, or if you have an identity that you want to import in a way, and you can see I do this all the time, I'll back up my identities on 2024, 12, 13, and then I'll just take all of this and just plunk it right into there. All right, perfect. And so now what I can do is I can copy from the edge router. In this case, you can copy from either the edge router or from the controller. It doesn't particularly matter. And I'll put it at my temp directory, mount c temp, and then we'll call it admin1. Okay, and then I'll go to command exe. I run WSL in case it's not obvious. So now I'll copy c:temp admin. Okay, I got to type it out because I got too much stuff in there. Admin1 into this location. And so now I should have admin1. Then when I come over to my desktop edge for Windows, and I turn it on, I'm doing development work in this, so let's see how this works out. Net start Ziti. See if I broke it. All right, admin. All right, look at that. 4 services. Cool. We still got this thing passing out back there. And let's see, we got. I know this is going to be illegible. So we got livekit.ziti.example and ziti. Okay. So we got everything clicked here. Now if you go back into the first terminal, which is going crazy, press Control C. Docker Compose up again. Waiting for it to stop gracefully. I usually don't wait for it to stop gracefully. I usually just forcefully close it. All right. Docker Compose up. Let's see if it's not so spazzy. Okay. Well, yeah, that looks. Oh, failed to do request. Oh, Clint. Clint's got a change. You can see in here 7880. That is all Clint's fault. Local host, by the way. And so we do a git status, and do we git checkout publisher main.go, and then Docker Compose build. Will it rebuild it? Let's hope. And then I don't know if up is going to work. Ken's online. He can tell me if I have to do a recreate or something. Probably have to terminate the publisher app in the subscriber. That's the other one. Yeah. Docker Compose RM publisher. Does that work? Oh, looks like it's building. Seems like it's settled. Okay. So now if I go over to, let's see, what did the README say? Now go back to the first terminal, press Control C, I did that. If you have a running tunneler on your host, you should see publisher app and subscriber app sending and receiving UDP packets. Oh, in the logs, I see. So let's come back over to here. I have a tzd command that can tail my logs. It's not on debug, so let's go to debug mode. Advanced settings, set logging level to debug, and see if we have anything. Oh yeah, I don't have the monitor client running. I don't see stuff going on. So, we got this going crazy. What's this saying? Failed to do request. Certificate signed by an unknown authority. So I thought I had done this. It'll recreate. Oh, let's see, Ken, thanks. It'll create. Spec has changed. Otherwise, you can force recreate. Thank you, Ken. So it says it's having a problem with the certificate, which I'm kind of surprised by. I expected that to work just because I followed the steps. And I mean, this is also within the Docker Compose environment. I don't know, it didn't recreate an identity, did it? Like a lot of times OpenZD is really sensitive to that identity. Remember the identity file, if you change that identity, of course, you will lose access. And so I don't know if this process actually recreated an identity, because if it recreated it, that would make sense. But this looks like it is failing the request to get to the LiveKit server from within the OpenZD Docker Compose environment here. So this seems like it's a slightly different problem. I don't know if we have Carlos on, but maybe Carlos could point out if I did something wrong in here. You can always go back. I should have left it running. So this is where TLS can become finicky with things like this, right? Figuring out exactly what certificate failed and why and where you have to update the proper HTTP client when you're using self-signed certificates is always, I find it to be tedious, just because you have to go and track all the certificates down that you're using, make sure that you put them in the right place, make sure your TLS context is correct, make sure you had the HTTP client correct. You got to do a lot of stuff in order to do that. That's why I will oftentimes use not TLS first when I do debugging. So now we're stuck at what could possibly be wrong there. And without Carlos's help, I'm probably going to go back and start the dev server again and see if I can leverage the scripts that Carlos already wrote that created the intercepts. And if I can see how he did it, let's look at the code and just see exactly where. Let's trace this through and see exactly how Carlos did this. All right, so here's the, okay, so main function. Okay, so this is where the for loop probably was that runs forever. So we found that. So it starts up forever and says go run the run. And if the run fails, it just dips back out again. And we'll do this ad infinitum. So I'm going to just take out that for loop because if it fails, I don't want it to run forever. I want it to just fail. All right. Now, this is probably useful when you're inside of the container, I suppose. Hey, there's Carlos. Hello. Hey. All right. I can see why you would do this inside of the container, because if this continues to fail, as soon as the publisher file becomes available, it will succeed. So that's likely why that's there. Let's see. So we initialize a connection. And so this takes a path, which is going to be a string to a file on the file system. We'll call setup ZD context, which is in the LiveKit example lib OpenZD setup file. And here's the identity file. It'll add JSON. So don't provide .json. It'll create a new config. A ZD config is, or ZD config is the representation of a ZD identity within your Go runtime. And so it'll read that thing in from a file and create a config. Once you have a config, you have to ask for config types. So, well, you don't have to. I suppose it depends on what you're trying to do. But generally speaking, the way the OpenZD SDKs work is you can set them up so that they work in an intercepting type of mode, so that what you would type at the console or using the underlay could be reused. All those same ideas can be reused in your application itself. And so we're very common and accustomed to domain names and a port, and you don't need domain names and a port inside of OpenZD. You just need a service name. And so if you are using the intercepting mode inside of your SDK, you can actually use what looks like a host name in your code. Sometimes that's useful because that's what we're used to, but you definitely do not need that. If you want to use the intercepting mode, then you need to request the intercept config. So if we go back and we look at, I turned it off. Let's turn it back on. Let's get his, let's Docker exec into, what's this thing called? Controller, right? No, come on, I'm sure it's called controller. ZD example, ZD controller. And run bash inside of here and do a ZD edge login minus u admin minus p admin. Oh, we got, let's see, source, the ZD.m file, ZD login. There we go. ZD edge list identity. We have no code completion. So another thing you can do is ZD completion and then bash. And then what you could do is source this. Right? Is that right? ZD edge. Nope. Did I do it wrong? What did I do wrong? I always end up doing it this way because I'm not a bash wizard. Out to completion. And then I source completion. Now I should have ZD edge. Going to be like that. That's going to. It's not, this is bash. What did I do wrong in there? I don't know. Let's exit, go back in again. Source completion ZD. Okay, maybe is it not installed? Is that why? All right. Well, there's no code completion inside of there. That sucks. ZD edge list services, and there's our services. And what was I doing in here? I was looking for config types. ZD edge list configs. And so here's all our configs. And so these intercepts are what you would use in the SDK. So let's do a ZD edge show config. I'll just use LiveKit example. And so inside of your app, your SDK, I would be able to use livekit.zd.example on port 7880. And so if we go over to the code again, I'm pretty sure that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that is referenced up here. Need to install bash completion. Thanks, Ken. Apt install bash completion -1. I'm not root, whatever. I just see that it's CD now. That's not going to work. All right. Well, I'll just keep typing it out. Okay. So I was going through, not this. Yeah, looking at configs. I was talking about config, using the configs in intercept mode. All right. And then looking at the code itself, going back to sudo. No, there's no sudo in there. Yeah. All right. So we were looking through this and going through connect to LiveKit. Okay. So initialize the connection. Yep, that's right. Set up the context, set up the transport. And so this is what I was talking about before with an HTTP client. A lot of times you need to create an HTTP client that will be useful over OpenZD. And so in order to do that, Go has some great abstractions for this, where you can get the default transport from Go standard library. You can clone it, and then you can set the dial context function so that every time you try to do a connection, when your client dials, it will execute this particular function. And so you can see in here, the dialer will dial whatever you want it to dial. And then the fallback will do the same sort of thing, where with the fallback, it'll use the fallback dialer if it can't dial via OpenZD. So that's what that's like the bread and butter of it. Carlos, I see that you're on. I don't know if you saw my TLS problem. I don't know if you were able to see what I did prior. I did follow all of the instructions from the README, at least I believe I did. I could probably Docker compose down and start all over again. But I don't know if there's an easy way to fix that TLS issue that's going on through there. I don't know if I goofed something up or what, but if you had some tips on that, that'd be great. I was interested in our back and forth as well. Carlos and I had talked about what was it that you had found a problem and solved it, which was PacketCon. That wasn't it. WebRTC. There was some place, I know when I was going through here, I was looking for where OpenZiti was used. So let's see if I do a find for OpenZiti in here. Oh, see, now this is not cool. I don't like seeing this. This is something we have to fix. It says our WebRTC stream works through OpenZiti, but it frequently disconnects. It needs to reestablish a stream connection every few seconds. That's not cool. In fact, that's also, if I come over to here, let's turn that off. If I come over to here, it's same. Carlos actually made a relatively similar comment on this. So Alex, are you, I know somebody else had reported on the forums a crypto failed. Could that happen to be you? Are you having the same, is that what you see in the logs? Let's see. So what are some of the tools? Let's see. I'm coming to the end of this particular stream. There is an office hours at 1:00. Happy to get back into this more. I did want to cover some of the Go. If I could get that red triangle, Carlos, I really want to see that red triangle, particularly over Ziti. So if you have, maybe your RTC is on the open internet, you can send me an identity or send the entire stream an identity, and we can see your red triangle. I really want to see that red triangle. I can't get the red triangle. When do I get to see the red triangle? All right. What are some tools to debug this? ZDH tunnel dump, PCAP. Okay. That's, yeah. I think we should get into this. Can you come to the 1:00? Is that okay, Alex? That's a good, we can, like the 1:00 is meant to be in office hours. I wanted to go through the SDK in this one, if that's all right. Appreciate you hanging out though. So let's see, we did the dialing. I wanted to see where the bytes were written. That's what I wanted to see inside of here. So let's see where I was trying to find where OpenZiti was used, and I wanted to find it within a particular directory. So I'm gonna look in that lib directory. Is there a module? No, it's gonna be lib. In the lib directory, because somewhere inside of here there's got to be some OpenZiti being used. Not in Foundation. PKC ICE. That's in setup. I really dislike the fact, there you go, transport. All right. Can you do uninstall and install again? Sure. All right, exit, uninstall. Exit, bye-bye. I like it. That's funny. And install. Should I Docker compose up first? Be my guess. Okay. Come on, you can control C already. There we go. Oh yeah, did it down. That's why. All right. I just run these myself. Good. And then an install. All right, while that cooks, Alex, back to your question about what can you do to debug. Um, the logs, getting the logs in a trace mode or debug mode, and then letting us take a look at them would be super useful, because I cannot copy no such file or directory. Uh-oh. I don't know, Carlos, if you caught that or not, but hopefully that won't matter. Usually what we'll ask for is trace logs and or ideally steps to reproduce. In certain cases, if possible, we ask to get an actual identity that you don't mind sharing with us so that we can run a debugger locally. If you're having frequent disconnects every few seconds, though, that's certainly bizarre. I wouldn't expect that. As far as MTU settings, Ziti tries to use as big of a packet as it can. I'm pretty sure it's set to 65,000 out of the gate. Uh, I don't do that all the time, but it's my recollection. So you have to take what I said with a grain of salt. Carlos, I'm having troubles. That thing is definitely unhealthy. I'm going to uninstall. I'm going to up, and then I'm going to reinstall, and we'll see what happens. Does it do a -v? I think it does a -v, right? Yeah. Let's try this one more time. I got 9 minutes left. All right. Now I got to do my up. Docker compose up. Yep. Do your thing. Make a new, so that's fun. So it's making a new overlay every time, which means you do have to remember to go and get rid of your identity. Oh, look at that little visual bug. Let me take a screenshot of that. I gotta fix that. These little white edges you shouldn't see. Confirm. Oh, nice. And it crashed the tunneler. That's also cool too. Let me take that screenshot too, because that should not happen either. All right. So that thing's now settled, and then we'll run install. Oh, I didn't do the Control-C in between. I don't know if that's relevant. The instructions do indicate at some point. Nope. Where's the Carlos right here? At some point it says go back and Control-C. Oh, this is after you copy the identity out. Maybe a little sleep in there would be a good idea, Carlos. Just a couple milliseconds. All right. Error creating route for LiveKit server misbehaving. That is a new one on me. I have never seen a server misbehaving. Right there, look at that. Server misbehaving. Interesting. Well, unfortunately, we tried. I think we're gonna have to close the stream. We did see some LiveKit stuff, which was cool. We learned what it was. We talked about the Go SDK. We saw Carlos's cool GitHub project. I hope you keep it out there so that people can come back to it and try it out. Maybe you and I, Carlos, can work together and get this working so that it'll work for somebody even like me who runs, maybe it's a WSL problem. I don't know. Maybe I've corrupted my Docker environment by downing and upping. Never can tell. I am prone to hitting these kinds of problems, as Ken will attest. And then talked about using config types. Let me just go keep looking through that code real quick, because it was some educational stuff in there. Let's see, config types. Let me look for all. And so Carlos is getting all config types. And what I was going to say about this is, technically, you could probably get away with just asking for the config type of intercept v1. You don't need all of them. If there are numerous types, then you could possibly get all of the ones, and you can filter that out based on what you want. All is by far easiest, because then you don't miss any. So I do the same thing. And then you make a new ZD context, and that ZD context is what will let you actually send data over the overlay. Refresh services is a good idea. Refresh services will make sure that you have access to the service. So that's where to go right here. That's a good idea to call that. And then set up Ziti context. Let's go back to here. Set up the Ziti transport. Yeah, we started talking about that a little bit. You need an HTTP. Talked about the Go library, which is great and has these great abstractions allowing you to make an HTTP client that replaces the underlay connection, the IP connection, with an overlay connection from OpenZiti. Still my favorite way of creating an HTTP client in any of the languages I've used. Custom dialer. I don't know what the custom dialer is for. It's probably for the fallback setting, would be my guess. Yep. Let's see. Is there a URL talking about enabling trace logs? Are you on? Okay, so I'm going to take a little tiny tangent for Alex here. Are you on Linux? Or are you on Windows? If you're on Linux, it's different than on Windows. On let me. I'm going to or on Mac, I suppose. If you're on one of the three, they're all different, frankly. In Windows, you would go into the UI. Where's my UI? Find my UI. Hello, right here. Go to main menu, advanced settings, set logging level, and you can set it to wherever you want. In Linux, there is a there's a link for that one. Let me find that one. Go to docs and logging. Is this where it is? Docs. Boop, 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 boop. Is that under tunnelers? No, tunnelers, Linux, troubleshooting, and then log level debug right there. Increase the log level. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. So that's how you would do it. All right, let's see. Ken, same time. Thanks, Ken. All right, so back here, refresh services we talked about. That's good. A good idea to make sure you have access to the service. Make your HTTP client, and then WebSocket Ziti transport. So this is different. Is this? Yeah. So here, I don't know what that's doing, but I mean, obviously by WebSocket, it's going to be the transport that is used when you're connecting to LiveKit, which will be done over a WebSocket, presumably. And then we're setting the WebSocket Ziti transport to that, and that's going to be referenced. That's what I should do. I should find out where that's referenced. Here it is in the client, which is in the LiveKit example. There we go. And so here we are down inside of LiveKit example lib WebSocket client, which is, let's come back over to here and see if I can't make this a bit cleaner. LiveKit example lib WebSocket client, like that. And this is where we are setting the dialer to whatever that dial context is that we were talking about before. This net dial must be used by something else within. Yeah. So when the LiveKit, not server, client, when the LiveKit server tries to connect to a LiveKit server, it's going to dial that LiveKit server, use this transport, and that transport will go over OpenZiti in that way. And then hopefully I can get this to work. I'd like to get it to work and see that red triangle. Sadly, it wasn't successful. I'm going to have to close the stream down. It is noon. So thanks everybody who hung out. Come back at 1:00 if you have any further questions. Alex, maybe you can show up there and we can have a dialogue. I'm going to start out that stream by looking at our Docker Compose environment, the complex environment, and adding a new server to that environment. So if that sounds interesting, come back in an hour. Until then, thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Well, or the time after that. We'll see. No more Ziti TVs after this one for the rest of December for sure. It's entering the holiday season here. So